What do you get when you cross a gritty 90s cop drama with ancient magic and thousand-year-old monsters?
Gargoyles.
Yep. Today we're taking you back to 994 AD and also to 1994, to a time when gargoyles worked alongside a lone wolf NYPD detective to thwart an evil billionaire and his evil henchmen.
Oh, I wouldn't call Demona a henchman, bud. She's basically his boss.
Yeah, that's pretty much exactly right. I'm Whitney Van Laningham.
And I'm Kris Carr.
And this is Nostalgia Trip! Before we get started, I want to say thank you to all of our patrons over on Patreon. Thanks to superheroes like you, we get to keep the lights on another week. Feel free to donate by checking out the link in our description box.
Gargoyle starts off strong and intense. We meet these intelligent nocturnal creatures charged with guarding humans that do not trust them or like them, who are stoned by day, flesh by night. They're betrayed by those humans in 994 AD, have all of their kind murdered, are frozen in stone by a magical spell that would only break when their castle, quote, rises above the clouds, and awake in 90s New York.
But when the Gargoyles' leader Goliath and his ancient pals finally rise and shine, they learn very quickly that they have all new problems to deal with. For starters, there's Xanatos, a guy with almost as many C notes as Lex Luthor, who buys the Gargoyles and the remnants of their castle for his private collection. He intends to use them to do his evil bidding, but unfortunately for him, Goliath's morals are still set in stone. Pun intended.
With the help of his gargoyle team, Hudson, Brooklyn, Bronx, Lexington, and Broadway, and his new detective ally, Elisa, Goliath does his best to protect NYC by night and get totally stoned by day.
I mean, same.
So did you grow up with this series? Like, are you familiar with it? Do you remember it?
Yeah. Okay, so when I was younger, this show was on in the age where I was still coming home from preschool and spending most of the day with a sitter because my parents worked. So if nothing else was on TV, I would watch Gargoyles, but I do remember thinking to myself, this is a show for boys, because there was only one female gargoyle and she was totally evil, and I was like, I want someone that I can look up to instead of just like being a demon forever, which I know is a surprise that I didn't always want to just be a demon.
Yeah.
But I totally thought that it was a show for boys. I did not think that I would like it, and therefore like I didn't pay that close attention to it. And as an adult, I kind of realized why. That show is so highbrow. They have so many like really cool storylines that I feel were totally lost on me as a kid. And now that I'm older, I kind of see Elisa as like the rogue badass detective.
Yeah.
Like now I see her as more of like a Mariska Hargitay, Detective Olivia Benson kind of figure. But when I was a kid, I was like, she doesn't have any superpowers, I don't care about her.
Yeah.
But guess what? When you get older, your tastes change, man, and now I'm like obsessed with this show. It is so good.
So good. I loved this one growing up because this was right up there with like Batman the Animated Series. It had that same kind of dark tone and
Same
vibe
vibes,
to it.
man.
Elisa was so cool. Demona was so evil. Later on, we got Angela when Goliath's kid showed up, so there was another cool badass chick in there. But I remember this show just being really intense, but I didn't understand how dark it was as a kid.
Oh, yeah.
So much of this went over my head.
So much murder.
There's a lot of murder.
And pillaging?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The original show basically was going to be a comedy, which I think is
really?
really interesting.
Wait, how? There's so much death and murder.
I know. So originally it was going to be these wacky gargoyles who didn't turn to stone ever, first of all. They were just always little like monster guys who were just kind of super annoying and bugged the crap out of a bunch of humans. And then it was, well, what if we have one big gargoyle? What if we do this? And Beauty and the Beast came out around this time too. So then it was, why don't we give a beauty to one of these beasts? Hence the Elisa-Goliath dynamic.
That's
which is why she even dresses up like Belle in one of the Halloween episodes.
Oh, that's cute.
Yeah.
I like that.
But the kind of concept was we had gummy bears on at this time. And Gummy Bears, while a delightfully light, fun show, does have a rich history and mythos behind it. So it was, okay, well, how do we do Gummy Bears, but dark and edgy? And that was kind of the jumping point for them, which I think is really interesting.
That's super interesting.
Yeah.
And just very random.
It's so weird. It goes to show you can find inspiration in anything. You
I
know?
want gummy bears, but I want them to be dark and gritty. I want it to be a police procedural from the 90s, and I want it to remind me of Batman.
Yeah.
Cool.
Exactly. One of the things that I remember being really, really dark and intense is that episode where Broadway accidentally uses Elisa's gun.
Oh, yeah.
That was insane.
Oh, yeah. That was super insane and dark. Like, I loved that episode. I loved that message, but it's just something that you didn't see on like on cartoons, and especially not on the Disney Channel in the 90s.
Well, and unlike so many other kids shows too, when guns are used, it's always kind of a fake gun, right? It's a laser that comes out of her something. This we know was a gun because she's a police officer. She has her weapon right in her little holster while she's off in the kitchen doing something else. And when he shoots her, she's laying in a pool of her own blood. I mean, that's intense for a kid to see.
It really is.
It was crazy.
It's funny too because all of the other characters who use guns, like you just said, like they all have like laser blasters that kind of look scarier almost when you're a child, you know, because you're like, oh God, that guy's shooting a laser at that guy. And it seems so much worse. But then when you're older and you think about it, you're like, oh no, that gargoyle just shot that woman on television.
Yeah. Well, and looking back on the episode, it's so interesting to me how bipartisan that episode actually is. Because the entire time, you know, Broadway then decides that he needs to go hunt down all these guns and gun dealers and gun users and get them off the streets because that's the problem. And then when he talks to Goliath and admits what he did wrong, and when he talks to Elisa, it's more of an issue about gun safety and responsible gun ownership and how she was also at fault here for, you know, not securing her weapon somewhere. And I mean, we don't have a conversation like that nowadays. So something like that happening in 1994 where you can calmly sit down and be like, oh, by the way, we should discuss how firearms are used and regulated and talk about their distribution.
Let's talk about gun safety in this children's show. Yeah, like people never do that nowadays. It would never happen.
We should have played this episode instead of wasting all that time in Dare.
This
is so much more helpful.
100%. Dare was so useless.
Yeah, but looking back on the episode too, as an adult now, in a post-SpongeBob world, hearing Patrick Star be like, no guns! It's hard to take it seriously.
It really is. It's also just like, why did they use the guy who loves snacks to really get this point across? Like, it's not the guy who's like kind of a punk and a badass, and like maybe he
not
like
the motorcycle guy.
Yeah, like not like, oh, when he gets in with the wrong crowd and accidentally shoots a gun. It's like, no, they just use the guy who's like kind of tubby and likes to eat, and they made him the gun guy.
I mean, it kind of works though, because he's basically the toddler of Gargoyles.
Oh yeah.
He's like a little kid playing, you know, cops and robbers in his house, and then
he's the all of us of Gargoyles.
It's true.
I think.
It's true.
I self-identify.
All of the Gargoyles are really great themselves too. I love everybody. Lexington is so sweet.
I hate them. Just kidding. I was like, what? You were like, I love everyone.
I like them. Lexington is so sweet, and I like that he kind of takes on the Donatello role of the Gargoyles and becomes really intrigued by inventions and all the technology of the time. I love that Hudson not only is the only Scottish gargoyle, no one else got that dialect. Everyone else was like, nah, we're not going to localize.
Everyone was like, well, you listen, we're not going to do that. Yeah. And he was like, I'm taking this 994 AD arc really seriously.
Very seriously.
And hold on to it for the rest of the show.
I'm gonna keep this. But I love him. I think he's a great foil to kind of all the enthusiasm that the other three gargoyles have.
I like that he's the one who gets a dog. I like that it's like the three boys, and then it's like Goliath and Elisa, and then it's just like Hudson and Bronx, and he's the one who gets to like have a little puppy. He has a pug.
He does have a pug. A vicious pug.
And Brooklyn's really cool.
Brooklyn's awesome.
I like his episode where he tries to make friends with a motorcycle gang.
Yeah.
And then he learns that you can't make friends with a motorcycle gang because it's blood in, blood out. And he's just like, I guess I'm just gonna blow up your motorcycle. Sorry about that, bro. And that's a very expensive bike, Brooklyn, that you just destroyed.
I love how pure that exchange starts though.
Yeah.
Of like, nice hug, man. Oh, thanks, I made it myself. What? That's crazy. And it's just them bonding over how much they like motorcycles, and then the minute they see those horns, they're all like, kill it!
Which doesn't make sense to me either, because I'm just like, what kind of like wuss motorcycle riders are you that you wouldn't want to like include a gargoyle in your pack? That would be awesome.
Because he looks like a straight up demon. Like he's got Hellboy vibes.
Oh yeah, he has some serious Hellboy vibes. You would think that would be like helpful and awesome if you're
initiate
in a
him into your Sons of Anarchy.
Yeah, you do.
Come on.
Yeah, if he's not a son of anarchy, I don't want to meet one.
Nah.
I don't want to meet a single son.
I really like how Elisa's voice actress ended up changing the character itself. I thought that was such a cool little factoid that they originally came up with this Hispanic character, Elisa Chavez, and then once they cast her voice actor, who is both Native American descent and African American descent, decided, hey, well, that's what our character is going to be.
It is so cool, and I didn't even realize that that's what it was until I saw the episode where her whole family showed up in the hospital, and then I was like, oh, I see what you're doing here. I see it, and I love it.
It's really cool to see a voice actor shape their character like that, and also just really cool representation back in the early 90s that like...
Again, why was Gargoyles so much more woke than anything we have on TV right now?
It's crazy. It's so good. And the voice cast in general on this show, so amazing, so good, so diverse. Most of which came from Star Trek, which I think is fascinating. And like the creators of the show, if they weren't Trekkies at the beginning, everyone who worked on it became a Trekkie. And so much so that the voice of Xanatos, #1, Riker on Star Trek.
Yeah.
He was going to be bothered by the rest of the creators and everyone. They really wanted to bug Patrick Stewart to come on the show. And then they all went, oh, that's really unprofessional. That's a really big ass. We shouldn't do that. But, you know, they get Michael Dorn on there. They get Brent Spinner on there. I mean, it was crazy how so many people from this cast end up in this show. And because they're all working actors, you know, they're all journeyman actors, they all went, oh yeah, I'll go do voiceovers. That sounds great. The pinnacle of which, though, we get Goliath, voiced by Keith David, who is incredible. I mean, that booming voice.
It's so good.
It sounds otherworldly. He's so great. And, you know, later on in life, I'll hear him in Requiem for a Dream and have very different views on his voice. But in this show, so good.
When he speaks, he's so commanding and so just like, you want to hang on to every word because he sounds like a hero. The way that he uses his voice acting to portray this noble, very moral, very like, I must protect my own kind and the humans equally.
Yeah.
Like I just think he brings such an art to that character.
Oh, absolutely. And what that actor's talked about too is how his Shakespearean training made him not only like how Goliath spoke, just the way his words were written, but how he felt he could bring that to the table. And the show as a whole has a very Shakespearean vibe to it. I mean, the creator, Greg Weisman, was a literature teacher and huge Shakespeare fan. And so he peppers that in throughout the series. And I think you see a lot of those themes in there as well. You know, all these ideas of family and loss and deception and betrayal, especially with Demona. I mean, so underhanded, so two-faced. And Xanatos, who we never really know what side he's on.
I liked Xanatos so much as a villain because I love a villain who is actually 10 steps ahead of his competitors. And I found that so interesting. One of my favorite moments is when Elisa is on the phone with, oh gosh, what's her name from the pack? When she's
Fox?
talking to her on the phone. Yeah, when she's talking to Fox in jail. And she says, well, why are you telling me all of this? And Fox goes, oh, Xanatos told me to tell you. He's not hiding his plans from you. He's so far ahead of you. He doesn't have to hide anything. And I just thought that was so cool and so evil because especially in the 90s and even within like, you know, watching Batman the Animated Series, for example, so many of those villains and so many 90s villains in general were always like, aha, it is I, this evil person, and this is exactly my evil plan, and I'm going to tell it to you instead of killing you so that you have time to thwart me. Yeah.
They go full syndrome and monologue.
And so I love that they have this villain who's like, I don't need to do that. I can just tell you what my plan is. You're still not gonna win, dude. And it's awesome. It's awesome. I love him as a villain, and I love that he's just like basically like a Lex Luthor type where it's like, he just has a ton of money and he can do whatever he wants.
Fun fact.
Yeah.
He was supposed to have the name Xavier, but people thought that he would get confused with Charles Xavier, so they went with Xanatos, which worked out because he ended up being of Greek descent.
That is cool.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. That's interesting.
They were just real worried audiences would be dumb and be like, that's the dean from that school for special people.
But he has such beautiful hair.
I know.
Xanatos has so much hair.
He has so much hair.
He has such great hair.
He's got facial hair.
He does. Oh my God.
He's got a lot of hair.
His beard is awesome. It's not even patchy. He has a great, wonderful set of head hair. Into it. Charles Xavier, not as much.
I love that Fox called Elisa too from jail, because not only was it let me know what the plan is, but It was also a humble brag about her man.
Oh, yeah.
Of like, girl, my guy is so smart, you don't even know.
You don't even know,
You don't even know, girl. Because they end up hooking up, and we find out that this whole time, they've been lovers.
Oh.
They've been very in love.
Oh.
It's crazy. They get married because when you're a rich person too, you know, there's an engagement episode, and then like the next episode they have a wedding.
Oh yeah.
You know?
Totally, because when you're rich, it takes you 5 minutes to plan a wedding because
Yeah.
all you have to do is be like, everyone in my life, do exactly what I want right now.
Exactly.
And then everyone does because you're rich.
And then in a weird power move, at that wedding, Xanatos is like, hey Goliath, you're gonna be my best man.
Which is so weird. It's so weird.
Yeah, and then Demona is the maid of honor.
Yeah.
Which like,
Dude,
Fox, come on, you couldn't pick anyone from the pack.
You couldn't have picked anyone different at all, just like anyone but her. She sucks.
No.
She sucks so hard.
We want to take a quick break to talk about how awesome TeePublic is. Do you like cool t-shirts? Of course you do. Who doesn't? You can't be running around this world naked. Go down to the description, click our link, and get a shirt that matches your fandoms. They have everything. And we even handpicked some of them ourselves.
We did, and some of them are shirts that we have. So if you want to be twins with us, if you want to do a Freaky Friday Parent Trap kind of thing, you gotta get a matching shirt.
Gotta get 'em.
Gotta get them.
One of the crazier episodes is in season 2, and it's called The Mirror.
I have not seen this one. Tell me
Okay.
everything.
So in this one, so first of all, we were talking about all those Shakespearean things, right? So the Fae are in this universe. You know, we're gonna get Oberon and all these other fairies and stuff. And we've got the trickster, we've got Puck in the mix. Who, fun fact, little spoiler here for people who aren't caught up on 1994's Gargoyles.
Whoa.
Puck is Xanatos' assistant Owen the whole time.
What?
The whole time.
Owen, what's going on?
Which speaks volumes about Xanatos because the deal he offers him is, okay, you can get one favor from me, Puck, or you could have this other kind of persona I've created, Owen, as your servant forever. And he's like, that one, I want a servant forever.
Yeah.
Which, okay.
Okay.
But so Puck uses this mirror to do some evil bidding for Demona. She wants him to destroy all humans. But Puck, trickster, right? You have to be really, really careful with your word choice.
Oh, you
and
do.
what he ends up doing is he gets rid of humans by turning them all into gargoyles.
Oh no.
Including Elisa. Now, what's really interesting about that is while Elisa's a gargoyle, she reveals her feelings for Goliath.
Dude, she's been trying to hop on that D since day
She
one.
thirsty.
Elisa's so thirsty from day one.
Yeah.
Day one. She's like, okay, but you're gonna like meet me on the rooftop in 20 minutes, right?
Yeah. One of the things that happens in this episode is Demona is given a gift by Puck. Because she's like, hey, I don't want to be vulnerable. I don't want to turn to stone in the day. Well, Puck is like, cool, I know how to do that. And he makes it so in daylight, she becomes a human. Which she hates humans.
Oh,
Every sunrise, she becomes a human. And this is super, super painful. She decides, though, that living as a human could actually work out for her. You know, she's gonna make lemonade out of these lemons. So she adopts the alias Dominique Destine. She gets all this money because she starts working and she becomes the CEO of this corporation she builds. And it's called Nightstone Unlimited. And she gets all this money and power so that she can just keep furthering her gargoyle goals, or her gargoyles, if you will. And so the immortality is gonna come into play in this 4-part episode little arc called City of Stone. So in that episode, Demona manages to cast a spell over all of Manhattan using the radio. So everyone who hears the airwaves turns to stone. And Homegirl just goes on a rampage and starts smashing up these stone bodies. So she's straight up murdering people,
no,
which
that
is crazy.
terrible.
Murdering them with glee. What's really interesting about this episode, though, is that we learn more about this character named Macbeth, who was introduced in season 1, episode Enter Macbeth. So Macbeth here is a lot more like the actual Scottish king, and that's a lot of the kind of lore and history they follow in the series as opposed to like straight up Shakespeare. So in this episode, we learn how Demona survived the Gargoyle massacre that happened back in Scotland way back at the beginning of the series, right?
So what she told Goliath was a lie?
It was a lie.
No.
Color me surprised.
Wow.
So what happens during all of this time where Demona's on her own, she has the Weird Sisters, as you'll recall from Macbeth, right? The 3 Weird Sisters, place this kind of curse on her and Macbeth that binds their souls together. So they are intrinsically tied from here on out. They're immortal. They can only die if Macbeth himself kills Demona.
Oh.
So on this children's show, this guy wants to die eventually because he's like, I don't want to be immortal anymore. So he seeks out Demona, trying to kill her so he can kill himself. And before,
that's super bananas.
Yeah. And before, okay, I mentioned how her transformation into a human is so painful. Binding spell. If they're in close proximity to one another, it not only hurts her, it hurts him. And likewise, any injuries and stuff like that.
So he's just like over this. He's like, I want to die. I don't want to hurt anymore. I just want to kill you, you dumb bitch.
He's like, I really wanted to live in Manhattan. I don't want to go to another borough. I hurt every day because of you. We gotta die. You know, this is before Brooklyn got cool, I guess, so.
Okay, and speaking of which, hang tight, can we just talk about how the Gargoyles in the Goliath Chronicles are called the Manhattan Clan?
Yeah!
And I'm like, you have a whole other borough in there. You have Brooklyn, you have the Bronx. You cannot call them the Manhattan Clan because only Hudson, Lexington, and Broadway are part of Manhattan.
Yeah.
The other places are not. You cannot call yourselves that if only 3 of your members. Please stop it, please stop it, please stop it. It makes me upset. Okay.
Okay, you brought up season 3.
Yes.
And I do want to talk about this because the creators, some of the writers, most of the fans do not believe that season 3 is canon and do not consider it canon. And so let's explain why that is.
Yes.
So what happened is season 1 was a smash hit. Season 2, still very popular, but that's when Power Rangers was released here in America. And obviously that was a phenomenon.
That was huge. That blew
Angel
everything
Grove.
else out of the water.
So a whole bunch of the team at the time too also happens to leave to start working for DreamWorks. And Disney ultimately just replaces the entire team. So Greg Weisman and his team still have all these storyboards that they were gonna do for season 3, right? Well, they would take a storyboard and, according to him, just go way south with the idea, where they'd go totally different direction or totally misinterpret it. And while he was still there, he was able to stop some of the things that he felt were more horrendous decisions, where he'd be like, oh God, don't do that.
Please do not do that.
But then once he was gone, obviously things are out of his hands, he can't do it. So he doesn't view this season as canon, and then he goes on to make some of those comics, which he feels is the actual wrap up to the entire series.
Right.
So what I'm wondering then is, it's out there. There's 13 episodes out there. Just because we as fans don't like something, that doesn't negate its existence. But if a creator says the continuation of their show isn't what they wanted, do we cancel that? Do we not view it as canon?
I mean, I watched season 3 and I enjoyed season 3.
Really?
So, what if I just like it? Do I have to agree with Greg?
I mean,
do I have
no.
to agree with Greg? Can I just like the show?
Well, what did you like about it? Because I always listened to them and I went, okay, Goliath Chronicles doesn't exist.
Okay, so I watched an episode that I really liked in season 3, and it is episode 8, and it's called Genesis Undone.
Okay.
And first of all, I'm gonna hook you into this ep real quick right off the bat by telling you that Tim Curry is the main villain of the episode.
He's Dr.
Cyrus!
Yes, he's the one who made Goliath's clone.
He's the one who makes all the clones.
Yeah,
and
dialogue.
So, yes.
Goliath backwards.
Goliath backwards.
Yeah.
Nilbog, it's like Goblin backwards. If you know what that's from, you're a real MVP. So in this episode, Severius has infected all of the clones with a virus. So the clones come to the Gargoyles and they're like, hey, we really need your help. We have been asking Severius to fix us and he doesn't have time for it. He acts like it's not a big deal. So Goliath is like, oh hell no, we are so getting you guys some antibiotics. So he flies them to Severius' house, wakes him up in the middle of the night, and he's like, dude, you have to help fix these clones. It's your responsibility. So Severius is like, okay, I can help you guys. All I have to do is gather enough genetic material from the original Gargoyles, and then I will be able to make a serum that will take the virus right out of you. You guys will be right as rain. They decide to help them. They go into Severius' lab, and he hooks them up to all these machines that are removing their genetic tissue and using it to create a serum that will defeat the virus.
Okay.
As soon as the serum is finished being made, Thyalog breaks into the lab. He disarms all of the Gargoyles, defeats them, and then steals the serum from Severius, claiming that he just wants to use it all for himself. So,
Classic Thyalog.
Classic Thyalog. But let's get back to that because that's not entirely true.
Ooh.
So the clones have a conversation with Severius where they're like, well, what can we do? We're just getting sicker and sicker. And Severius says, it's up to you guys. You guys have to all go after Thylog, and you have to take him down, and you have to get the serum back because I'm powerless. He already took it from me, and the gargoyles couldn't stop him, so it's up to you. And basically he tells them, hey, you're gonna be dead by morning anyways, so you might as well try. They go off to fight Thylog, even though they're like on the verge of death. And when the gargoyles wake up, Severius is like, oh, thank God you're finally awake. I tried to stop them from going after Thylog, but they wouldn't listen to me.
What a butt.
What a butt, right?
Oh.
So then he FaceTimes Thylog, only it's the 90s, so I don't know what they called it then, but it's basically FaceTiming. Magic. And Severius is like, why don't you take it all right now, because it's most definitely gonna work and you're not gonna be sick anymore. And Thylog is like, okay. And so he takes the serum. Severius is like, haha, fooled ya. That was the anti-serum. It's just gonna make you sicker and sicker. It's full of poison and it's full of even more of the virus. So you're just gonna have double virus and you're gonna die first. And he explains that he needed to take Thylog out first because he knew that he was the strongest and that the rest would be easier to defeat once he was dead. So he turns off the FaceTime because he's like, listen, watching you die is gonna be really awkward, so I'm just gonna cut this feed. Tim Curry actually says something like that, where he's like, I'd love to stick around and watch you die, but that sounds gross. And so he just like turns the feed off. And so he doesn't see that luckily Thylog was faking it. He actually still has the infected serum, and he chose to just pretend and fake his own death so that he could later break back into the lab and help everybody.
Oh.
So even though all of the other clones, they died because they didn't get to the correct serum in time. And so all of them got permanently turned to stone and they're never gonna wake up again.
Aww.
It's really sad, it's like very unfortunate.
Yeah.
And the gargoyles are completely helpless, they don't know what to do. Luckily, Thylog comes in. It reveals that he has this serum, and thankfully he comes in at just the right time because Severius had been making a creation called Little Anton, named after him. And Little Anton is a super gargoyle that he injected with all of the gargoyles' genetic tissues into. So instead of giving the serum to the sick clones, he injected the full dose of serum into one super gargoyle so that he's extra, extra strong and extra powerful and undefeatable by the regular gargoyles.
Yeah.
So Thylog still has that other vial of serum. So while the gargoyles are getting their asses kicked, he tosses it to Goliath before Thylog dies of the virus, and Goliath takes it and injects Little Anton with it. Wow. So then Little Anton gets the virus and dies immediately. And it is so sad because he's basically a baby and thinks that Severius is his dad. And so he's like, Father, I don't feel good. And Severius is like, don't worry, you're just gonna sleep for a long time. And it's super heartbreaking, super traumatizing. All of the clones die and Little Anton dies. And then the gargoyles are just kind of like, sucks to suck, Severius. We're out, bye. We're letting you deal with this mess that you made.
Dang.
Yeah, so it's a really deep, dark episode. Tim Curry is an amazing villain. He is so convincing that he's on the gargoyle's side. He's so convincing that then he's on Thylog's side. And then it turns out that like the only real thing that he was conveying at all in that episode was that he really did feel that Little Anton was his son and like his creation. And so even though he's this evil person the whole episode, at the very end you're like, that was his baby.
His baby.
They
killed him.
They killed his baby.
Aww.
So I don't know, Tim Curry's just a great actor and I love love the range that his character got in that episode. But that being said, that was a really good episode. It's awesome. Why don't you like it? Why don't you like it, Greg Weisman? Why don't you like it?
I mean, the biggest argument I've heard before is that the series then becomes something more akin to X-Men of the 90s and doesn't have the same vibe as Gargoyles.
No.
I haven't seen it though, so I can't make that judgment call.
It's really
you know?
cool.
I just was trying to be a good girl and listen to what what wise Weissman said.
The wisest of all the wise men.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure.
No, that's fine, and I totally get that. But something that I think is really interesting is that in the continuation of the comics, kind of as like an FU to this specific episode of the Goliath Chronicles, the comics now just had a continuation where the clones just never die. Like that just never happens.
Okay.
They completely take that out, and so the clones are alive. They're all living and well. Nope, not at all. So
he was never conceived.
He basically, he was never conceived. He never existed. But the clones are all alive and well and living in the labyrinth. And I think that that's interesting because at the end of that episode, Goliath does this whole speech where they restore all of the clone gargoyles and they put them around the clock tower as actual gargoyles so that they could actually be protecting the clock tower as like real guys. It's a really lovely moment, and he gives this whole speech about how he and his friends were all asleep for 1,000 years and they were able to be reawoken, so hopefully in the future they'll be able to find something to reawaken the clones. So that was like a whole part of it, and I feel like the comics are just a real big old middle finger to that part of the episode, because they're like, actually season 3, they never died. They were always alive, and we're not gonna put up with your dumb thing where you thought that we could just Lazarus pit all the clones. And so that's why I like it.
All right. You guys should let us know if you like it, though.
Yeah, you should. You really should. These are just our thoughts and opinions and stuff on Gargoyles, but we really want to know what you guys think of the series.
Exactly. Do you remember watching the show? Did you grow up with it? Do you like season 3? Let us know why you do or why you don't.
Yeah, man. We're just a couple of Gargoyles, and we just want to hear what you think of Gargoyles.
Exactly. Be sure that you subscribe to the channel, like this video, and hit us up with your comments down below.
Yeah, we'll be back next time to take you on another nostalgia trip, but don't worry, we're bringing the snacks.
See you at the next exit.
Bye. Bye.